Tonight, we have a rich full agenda with presentations from our half of our applicants for this cycle. But the first item on our agenda is a late file application. It's being made by the Newburyport Affordable Housing Trust. The context of it is after the deadline for applications being submitted, there was much movement in the Brown School project. The developer changed his package to include 100% affordable housing and deep affordability, requiring some public money. Went to the Affordable Housing Trust, and they, in their last meeting, voted to grant from the funds that over the last, I believe, 4 years, they have accumulated with the monies from the CPC, the amount of $450,000 toward making that project happen with that developer. As a result, they wish to come in late with a request for $200,000 in a partial replacement of the funds that have gone out to that project, so that they do have more monies to operate their other projects that they have. So the issue before us tonight is not that project. It's whether or not we will accept the late application from the trust. And if we do, it would be put on next meeting's agenda as an applicant and a presentation. So regardless of what you might think about the merits, is there any discussion? First of all, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
I move that we accept the late application.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? No, then we'll have a vote. And Caitlin, remind me, do I need to do a roll call?
Yes.
I do. Okay. We can do that. I can do that. Hold on. Gotta make sure I don't miss anybody. Here we go. Okay, roll call vote on the motion to accept the late file of the Affordable Housing Trust. Charles Griffin,
Yes.
Tom O'Brien absent, Joe Texera,
Yes.
Jamie Gagnon. Jamie Gagnon absent. Jennifer Bluestein. Jennifer Bluestein absent. Biff Baus,
Yes.
Andrea Wheatman,
Yes.
Jane Healy.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay. So Caitlin, please contact the trust and have them submit in advance of the meeting any written materials that they want for us. And I'll just mention, and we will be reminding the committee members of this. If they're unable to attend any of the presentation sessions, they will be asked to make sure that they review the text of the meeting. It's on the record at City Hall in advance of our deliberations, so that they have the same information that all of us have here. Okay, then we can move on to our applications. The first one tonight is from the People's United Methodist Church regarding the roof replacement. Request for in the amount of $90,000. Good evening.
Good evening.
Matt Willis, good. I am the pastor at People's United Methodist Church. So and Jim and Brenda Marshall, who are faithful one a member, one a good friend, here to support us. So thank you for your time tonight and for considering our application. It's pretty straightforward, I think, so I won't take too much of your time, but just some reminder just of what People's United Methodist Church are building and our history in the city. Congregation began worship back in 1819, so it's been around for a while, and the original structure is at what is now Purchase Street, was built in 1825. In 1846, the sanctuary was lifted and the first floor was built underneath it, and that was 1846, and then 1888. Steeple was erected, and then we had the Angel Gabriel weather vane, which was attached in 1897, and of course the weather vane. You all helped us to repair the steeple when we put up a new replica weather vane back in 2018. I believe it was $20,000 then that we were awarded to repair the steeple. Not the weather vane, because that was a replica, not the original that we're putting back up there. I believe the original is still in the Smithsonian, and that's where it was last I heard. So so that's just a little reminder and a thank you for help with that. And now I had noticed when I was first putting this together, and I saw the picture, that picture's from when we put the weather vane up there, and the ladder is still up on the steeple. And it's kind of underneath where that ladder is, where we first started discovering a leak. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not, but so we do have a leaking roof. So that's what we are looking to replace the whole roof. We've repaired patches over the years, numerous repairs on the roof, and when we had it looked at by Newburyport Construction, so we talked to and had went up there and looked at, and they said, yeah, the whole roof needs to be replaced. So just the numbers is pretty straightforward here as well. It's just the full replacement of the shingles. So $96,800 is the amount that Newburyport quoted us, and $5,000 in there is a contingency in case there's enough boards underneath that need to be replaced, and if they don't, then that will be reimbursed. And the we're requesting $90,000 with the understanding that we cover the contingency. You know, hopefully we don't have that much and it comes back, but and then the rest of the 1,800 will, you know, fundraise, and there's some smaller grants that are pretty easy from our United Methodist, the New England Conference of the United Methodist Church. So we believe we'll be able to cover that much of it. And then also the, I guess the next slide is, oh, I didn't put it there, but I'll get there later, but just to foreshadow that, you know, we'll also be looking to do the interior repair afterwards, and we'll, this is only for the actual roof that we're asking for right now. Sorry, I realized it's kind of small. There's probably even small. Oh, I did have handouts for you. I didn't give them to you, did I? Okay, you can see it. All right. Sorry. It's probably even harder to see in the handout. So as I was wrestling with my printer today, but this is just our financial, you know, situation as it stands right now. We have $22,641 in our checking account, and then we have another $10,649 in an account, and that's restricted for use on that money was all given for upgrading our kitchen as we move towards having a nonprofit cafe in there and doing some work there. So it's really $22,000 that we have in the bank right now. And then yeah, next slide is just oh, great. Yeah, this is just last year, and you can see we ran negative 19,000 for last year. It's a bit deceptive because we had just before the year started a large grant from the conference that we'd be getting. That was, I think, I don't remember, it was close to 20,000 then. So we're about breaking even on money that we had to spend on that grant, you know, had to be spent, and a lot of it was geared towards my salary at the time. So, that's just where we stand. So that's just to show, we can't afford to replace the roof, at all on our own. So that's why we're turning to the cultural preservation to help, help us with that. So, and, the, interior, I just put this up here to, say what we're planning on doing afterwards is that, there's mold, which the part of the ceiling we might need to be replaced, might just take care of removing the mold that's there anyway, but the roof has been leaking through. And we have pictures of that. I know everything that's on here, and I don't think you all need to read it, so we can go. Yeah, we can go. But they basically, the estimate is everything included, it's 96,800, and that's everything to the inspection, and then, yeah, this is kind of what we've been doing to take care of things for now until we can get it fixed. Luckily, we have some creative hands at the church. We've got PVC pipe, we've got tarps catching the rain as it's leaking through the ceiling, going into a bucket, then going across the ceiling with PVC pipes and down into the second floor. Luckily, we had a bathroom put in a few years back on the second floor, so it's going down into the sink, and so we're just draining down now until we can get it repaired. And yeah, we just have mold damage coming through. I think it's coming through. This is the ceiling over the stairs that go up to our sanctuary. So right now, we're actually not using the sanctuary. We decided somewhere, it was November, the end of November, December, to go downstairs into the hall, just with mold up there and, saving us some heating right now anyway. So, we're worshiping downstairs until we get that all repaired. But all of that will take care of that interior repair through fundraising or, and also through the conference. And there's some specific grants for mold remediation and those kinds of things that we can tap into that for. So we feel confident in those repairs after the roof is repaired. And, yeah, and just to give you a peek at a little bit, we're a historic, congregation, very small congregation. Sunday morning, it's a dozen of us when, good morning and faithful folks. And but we have a lot going on. I know we are applying, because of our historical status and for the repair of the building, but we are providing, a good cultural space right now where we have our every Saturday jazz music from 1 to 3, jazz and coffee, Chuck Walker music, and followed by bluegrass from 3 to 5. So it's live music free to the community every Saturday. We have we're home base for Imagine Studios Performing Arts, who puts on they do the Indigenous Peoples Day celebration in the city. That might be a place you know them from, but they put on open mic nights and drum circles and all kinds of things. And in this space, we're also working towards a nonprofit cafe, which we're getting ever closer to. And I've just got my food manager license or certification, so we have our food establishment license all ready to go, and we're hoping to do a job training program with that, and then just have some good things happening there. So we have some vision for the future, things going on, and mostly serving the community outside of our worship service at this point. So some good things going on, and some things that we hope will make us more sustainable moving into the future too. So it's a big investment, putting on the $90,000 roof, and wouldn't want you to think that we're putting on a $90,000 roof for a church that's going to close in a couple of years. We are also in the process of merging with the Newburyport United Methodist Church, where I'm also the pastor over in Merrimack. And when this all goes through, July 1st is our target date, where we have a transition team working now. But the building in Merrimack will be sold, and the sale of that building will go into a restricted fund that is only for capital improvement or large repairs to our church building or to the parsonage in Merrimack where I live. So that's something that will help with other. There isn't a whole lot of other deferred maintenance in the building. The roof was never really planned for. I mean, it should have been. But otherwise, there's not a lot of other major projects. So so that's kind of where we are and what our future looks like, and the grant would be really helpful to help us keep the roof on and get, or put a new roof on and get there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions, Mitty? Do you intend to get any additional estimates?
We do, and the initial leaking or the rapid leaking that made us realize we needed to get this taken care of now, and made us realize we needed the roof and not just a repair, came so close to application time and just.
Right.
So we do have the names of 2 other roofers, and that's something, yeah, we certainly, you know, if we need to go through continued review process or anything that, you know, is helpful for you all, you know, we can.
What we'd like is when you do get estimates, whatever they are, higher, lower, send them to Caitlin.
Okay,
And she'll circulate them to us.
sure.
And it would just be further information for us in terms of the scope of the problem and whether or not this is a reasonable number.
Yes, yes, and we wanted to get it, you know, if we don't need a whole nother roof, you know, great, that would be wonderful, or if there's
Do you have
another.
any idea when the current roof was last?
No,
Okay.
not in living memory,
Mhm.
so, yeah.
Not surprising you need a new one then.
No, it's not, it's surprising that we haven't, before now, so.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I would just make the comment, I think that getting another estimate would be valuable to at least it would be to me. It costs you nothing to do that, and it could confirm this number.
Yes, absolutely.
I will point out to the committee that the NHC has weighed in and supports the project, and there isn't a current PR on the structure.
Yeah, I'll comment on that, since we remember that commission. We spoke with them back on the 9th, I believe, and looked at what the effects on the changing the roof would have on the preservation restriction, and now in fact it's kind of what the preservation restriction is for, so to keep these things maintained, and overwhelmingly we're backing this as a project.
Good, thank you. Caitlin, are there any
Yes.
are there any members of the public that are attending?
There are a couple, and we do have a person. with
I'm gonna have
their hand raised.
Andrea ask her question and then we'll go to the
Okay.
public. Okay, Andrea?
I think I saw this in the material when I was prepping for this meeting, but is youth services still using the church? It's my
Yes.
understanding they've used it quite a lot.
Yes, youth services, they reduced from what the first year they were in, we
Yeah.
actually had a like exclusive use
Yeah,
agreement
right.
with them
Yeah.
in the space. For the past 2 years, I think it's basically been, or at least the past year, they're in there, just Tuesday through Friday, 2 to 5, so the after school program
It's
is
still
there.
there. Okay, thank you.
Caitlin, any members of the public want to ask questions?
Yeah, yes, Stephanie Nicklick, and she's been unmuted.
Okay, yes.
Hello, Stephanie Niktich, 93 High Street. I did send I wanted to be there tonight. I can't be because I'm sick, but I did send an email, and so did you receive my email?
Caitlin? did
Yeah,
you-
we do have it, and it's, the email has been uploaded to the, application. So
Oh,
we do have,
so if the commission members have my email, I'm not going to repeat it. I would like to just say, the Reverend is generous in suggesting that CPA funds covered all of the steeple restoration. I don't believe they did, based on the work that that I did with the Preservation Trust. It covered less than half of it. So this is that was a very humble request. And I think that the church, which serves as a polling station, which does allow youth services, which does a lot of other things for the community. I think the asking for funds for the roof is another humble request for a congregation which maintains a very important historic building in the city. And Mr. Chair, if I may ask Caitlin a question?
Certainly.
So Caitlin, what I noticed is that the preservation restriction that goes along with this application is not signed at all. And as I recall, the preservation restriction was fully executed and recorded. So does the planning office have a copy of that of that fully executed, recorded preservation restriction? Because I think it would be helpful to the commission.
Yeah, that's a good point. We should have that, and I'll take a look and we'll swap it out for the recorded, and executed document.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, thank you. Anyone else? Tuned in, Caitlin?
No,
No?
that's it.
Okay. Anyone else have a question or comment?
Yeah. You missed the Newburyport quilters and the AA that also meet in there, and these from circles.
And then Tai Chi course. The Tai Chi twice a week, right?
I go 3 times, I come to.
Okay. No, that is in the application, so. Yeah, there is.
And the other thing I mentioned, I'd like to mention about the roof is tongue and groove. And over the years, it would shrink, so the tongues are not necessarily in the roofs any longer, and that's part of the problem, why they're asking us to replace the underlayment.
Mhm. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next application we have is the preservation of the foundation beams and piers at the Newburyport Art Association. Request for $61,404.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
And committee members, thank you. My name is Max Shank. I'm the Vice President of the Board of Directors for the Newburyport Art Association, and I'm happy to present to you for your support, along with the thank you for the support of the Newburyport Historic Commission for our project. This is a capital improvement to preserve useful life project, as it were, under the parlance. I think everybody knows the Art Association at this point, and its location centrally located pretty much downtown, within or next to the Tannery Building Complex, as well as the ranged light. You'll see in the envelope overview here, there's the building itself, there's the small courtyard behind it. What it doesn't include, though, is the sculpture garden, which is a partnership between the U.S. Coast Guard and the city and our organization, which we're very grateful to have. And we feel is a great presence in the community, especially for those along the boardwalk who are taking that walk. So just going over real quickly, the historic 18th century mercantile building was built by Anthony Davenport, so we believe, and was involved in the molasses trade at the time. There were docks apparently at one time that came up pretty much adjacent to the rear of the building. Uses over time included the molasses trade, the count was accounting out the sale, loft, machine shop, grocery store, and I swear to God, I was never there, a pool room. The Newburyport Art Association purchased the building in 1969. We like to believe we've been very good stewards of that building and made several large investments over time in regards to its infrastructure and ensuring that its upkeep is maintained. Currently, it houses our Sergeant Hills and Hearts and Galleries, as well as sales area, offices, storage spaces, and we mentioned the other locations. We have about 600 members in the Art Association at this point, we're happy to say, and most of those are Newburyport members. We present, gosh, at least a dozen plus different exhibits each year, along with classes and presentations and talks. Next slide, please. So this proposal is based off of a 2023 study, 2023-2024 study We received funds through a matching grant from the Massachusetts Cultural Council Facilities Fund to have a systems replacement plan created by Olive Branch Consulting Limited. That SRP is the acronym. The SRP outlines our facilities needs over the next 25 years. Now, all total, those needs, if you include the recommended elevator, is about $800,000+ Now, we're taking this in tiny bites. So in trying to prioritize the work that we wanted to get done to the most essential for the preservation of the basements and the structure holding the building up, essentially, as well as in regards to the insulation of the building. There's a dearth of insulation in there, I'm afraid. Our heating and electric bill gets to be around $800+ a month, especially in cold weather like this, even though I have a Gestapo-like presence around the thermostat and still manage to, take quite a bit of heat to keep it going. Let's see, all right, project development. So you can go to the next slide, please, Gillian. Thank you so much. Concerns and goals. So what we're looking to do in this particular phase is reinforcement of deteriorated brick piers. You'll see in that upper picture, upper left photo, that I think there are 2 of these brick piers where it's starting to crumble towards the bottom. It's showing, according to the analysis, as huge amount of deterioration. Insulation in the basement and attic, as I mentioned, whether the consultants had recommended was a batten and fiberglass in the basement, and then blown insulation in between the second and third, it's actually the attic space, to help keep things, because there's nothing there at the moment, I'm afraid. And so to blow in and cellulose insulation in those areas. The stone foundation has areas of structural concern. There's a need for replacement of pointing work for those areas where mortar is missing or loose to minimize water damage and infiltration. And then finally, structural wood beams are deteriorated. It's the typical thing that you've seen in buildings that age, where the beams, when they were put in, were cut up in certain areas where they should have been cut up and are starting to slowly rot. So, next slide, please. So the scope of work, as we mentioned, we had a comprehensive study done. The estimates that we received were from this study. Now, the group that Olive Branch, who provided these estimates, they included structural engineers and contractors and the works to look at the assessment of the folks that went through it and to give their estimates based on current market, with a 5% contingency for each year going forward. For the work that's being done, the Art Association will cover that 5% contingency based on if things come above what they're estimating the cost at, and possibly above that. So right now, the first 3 parts are actually to have the structural engineer come in and make their recommendations for the pier work, as well as the foundation work and the beams that need to be put in. Once that's in hand, we'll go forward and then hire the contractors that we need to perform the work, using those estimates as our basis for judging whether or not we're being robbed or not, essentially, and within the fair market value, and then doing multiple estimates as well. And moving forward from there, we have every faith that the work will be completed within the next fiscal year. Okay. And next slide, please. And this is just an outline of the costs that are associated. So the assessment's recommendation by the structural engineer was estimated at $13,000. Reinforcement deteriorated brick piers is $7,000. Insulation in basement and attic is $16,000, which stunned me, to be perfectly honest. Rehabilitation of foundation pointing work in areas where mortar is missing or loose is $20,000, and reinforcement of structural wood beams is $5,000. So that's the total of the $61,404. Based on that 5% contingency, the contingency would be about plus minus $3,000 thereabouts. So I'm happy to, when I go to the next slide, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you. Questions? Do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, sure. We also met with these folks was it just last week.
Just last week.
Yeah. And very similar to the church, they also have a preservation restriction that we looked at and made sure that what they're doing is good with that agreement, and we found unanimously that it was. And also the project, being that the building is not only a historic building that's important to save, but it also houses a lot of community assets. We all also agreed that it was something that we should consider on the CPC.
And just to add on to that, I want to thank the Historic Commission members. They had some great recommendations for types of mortar that should be used for a building of that type, and this pattern that should be used in the brickwork was a great resource. So I was thankful for their feedback. Thank you.
Well, there's certainly the people to go to when you're doing the work. Yeah, okay. Other comments?
I have a question. I don't know if it's for Beth or who it's for, or if it's for next, our deliberations, but is the PR restriction on the exterior only? Does it have, how does that work when we're looking at it in terms of historical?
I don't know the
So
details.
I did read through the restriction, and it is mostly in regards to the exterior of the building. Other than, and one of the exemptions, which I think was exemption 4B, if I'm remembering correctly, where things like this, where you're doing things in order to preserve the long-term life of the building, are allowed under that restriction. There are no changes, even moving forward, as a for instance, when we're talking about, redoing windows and repointing the brick and et cetera, as long as we're not changing the facade or adding anything like that, we're fine. But we would obviously, at any point in time along in this process, because we're considering this to be phase one, so we're would go before or seek out the advice and wisdom of the Historic Commission to make sure that we're complying with every aspect of that restriction that we can.
Yeah, I'm asking because I think our hands are somewhat tied that we need a preservation restriction on any work that's being conducted, or is that?
I believe that's correct. And one of the issues that we face in terms of where the public funds from this committee can be recommended to be spent for historic preservation. The theory and the policy is that the structure, be it a private structure or a public structure, represents the historic landscape that the public enjoys and becomes it's part of the character of the town. So in the decision we have to make is, do the funds that are being recommended support that historic landscape? And that's why generally we're looking at, and I know historically, and I use that with a small h, on the committee and with the CPA, generally you're looking at the exterior work on a structure, and that is generally where the preservation restriction is addressed. On occasion, you get a parts of the interior which are spelled out within the restriction as well. I don't believe that's the case with this one. I'd have to revisit it.
Yeah, I would have to as well, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, but in any event, what's good for us is that you've got, at least at the moment, you've got a good breakdown of your costs. So we have the ability to segregate out an interior cost if that's where the sense of the committee goes. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. And it's a tickler to revisit on that. If I find any information, I'll certainly send it along, and we can go from there.
Okay. Good.
And something I wanted to suggest too, and I don't know the answer to this, so this is just.
Alright.
Is, I
No
know,
guarantees I know.
at least for private buildings, like homeowner, private homes. There's there's state incentives for insulation. And so I don't know if you would be eligible, the art association would be eligible for those,
We actually were just talking in the last word, and we had actually talked about it in previous board meetings, that there's been a lot of changeover in staffing, et cetera, in the last year. But to get the mass saves, to come through and do their estimates and let us know what they're capable of doing, so. I mean, to be perfectly honest with everyone, the thing that's most important to us and the thing that scares us the most is the structural aspects of the building, so. In your deliberations, as you go forward, you can definitely keep that in mind, that insulation would be great if we can do that, but, you know, our highest priority is to ensure the safety of the building for the long term, at least for the next year. So, yes.
Caitlin, is there anybody tuned in that wants?
There is one person.
Okay,
Oh, no, they left.
Was it something I said?
yes. Likely. No, they're satisfied.
Okay, thank God.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you all for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next item is the accessibility lift at the Custom House Children's Discovery Center. Application by the Newburyport Maritime Society. Amount of $52,000.
Hello. Bob Cronin, chair of the board, and James Russell. Mr. Chair, good to be back again. Welcome. It's always good to be back here. Okay, let me run through about 10 slides here to let you know what we're up to. Maybe to start with, we had this Bible which was created about 10 years ago or so, and it was looking at the historic structure. One of the things it said was that creating access was probably not feasible with the building, but we've been looking at that very carefully. And we come up with a strategy which is 3 phases to bring access into the lower level. We're creating a discovery center, and then we're going to challenge. I think we have a solution, a pretty good solution for trying to get up to the first level, and we're going to have a look at the second level in due course. So we want to take on this challenge now. It's the easiest by far of the 3. And I think it's an important step to consider. So just by way of primer, I just want to report out, and this came up in conversations last year when we were doing masonry restoration work, that of the 2 CPC grants, which came to $170,000, thanks very much, we were able to get about $90,000 in matching funds to match that +70, so we're pretty happy about that. The second thing is when the building came to into our ownership, there was a board obligation or a commitment to build up a building fund, and we're building that up now. So somewhere around 200,000, give or take, what Bitcoin is doing today. We hope to grow that to about $1 million, so there is start taking care of some things, but you can imagine 4% on 200,000 is going to do a whole lot, and taking it out now may be questionable. Now, the third is breaking down barriers. Is our a challenge. So there's access barriers. We're dropping our financial barriers. We're trying to model where it's actually free admission. In this particular case, it's going to create a kids space, which is free year-round space, providing STEM-based maritime learning, which I'll walk through with you. And great news that the Hoyt Foundation listens to our request, and they've already come in, and there's a letter in the package here saying that they're supporting and showing good faith with a $10,000 commitment to phase 1. We've obviously talked to Dennis Morrell about this as ADA coordinator, and there's communication there with the Council of Disabilities. I believe there's a letter of reference from the report, historic commission, which should be in the package.
Look, it is, yes.
Great, okay, super. Let's just run through a couple of these quickly. So here we are, so again, free year-round indoor space and providing something unique and discriminating. This is a 3-day-a-week program we have at the Boys and Girls Club, internship programs, etc. We don't have to go through the next 2 slides in detail, but they're basically the strategy and the rationale for getting to where we want to get to. We've seen an increase from 8,000 to 12,000 this year in participation. We expect that to go to 15, and we're hoping to get to 20,000 by 2026. We think we should be able to meet that goal as a result of this paradigm shift that we're moving to here. So maybe just hold on that just for a second, Caitlin. So a major increase in kids' activities. We see some strategic differentiation in this program. It's aligning with volunteer interests. And there's an outdoor model here because of the investment in the rear doors. This lift now allows a connection between the outdoor space and the indoor space that you see. Next slide. So this is the lower level. All the floors kind of conform to this pattern. You can see the rear doors at the on the right-hand side, incline lift coming down as an activity zone. To one side, where it says new activity space, that's currently an office space. And one of our goals over the past 2 years, over the past year, has been to open up as much space to make it public facing, because we're very space constrained. So utilizing publicly facing as many of the spaces as possible is critical, even if that means moving administrative or other tasks offsite. And sure enough, we have a lot of our collection in Amesbury, which has allowed us to make some of the improvements that we've currently made. It's about 1,000 square feet, give or take, order of magnitude. Infrastructure and program initiatives are just over 100,000. This is about 62,000, give or take. We've got commitments and cash in hand or pledges for the 110, which is terrific. So it's a super start. We're in the middle of building this out. It's all been permitted and approved. And of course, one of the things that this does do is it's solving for mold, cold, humidity, etc. down in that space. And so it's going to be a much more usable space. All right. This next slide just gives you a primer on what we're looking for. Mills is known, and the whole building is a fireproof building, which is terrific. And you see these barrel vaults and groin vaults. But you can see here, this is going into this office that we're going to turn into kid space, where it's completely wrecking this beautiful architectural detail that's now going to get exposed. All the interactors are being built out by volunteers. We'll pay for the supplies, but volunteers are building them, but most of them. And here is, so this is the back door. This has to go for obvious reasons. You can't have a lift here, but this caravan's a platform lift. Just fits in. We'll need some variances, but we're pretty sure we're going to get them at least here and hopefully in Boston. And it comes down right here, and the lift folds down up here, comes down a couple of steps, and you're able to get off and come into the classroom space. So this is compliant. It's ADA compliant. We'll need to go for a variance to get a smaller lift. We do have some issues with spring lines here, but we think we can make it work. There's some legal, permitting, structural, architectural work required to make this work, and obviously electric. There's no impact to the historic materials. Will fasten through mortar instead of through granite, and it's a reputable company. Here are a couple more slides. Oh, here's some details on how it fits. Our architect is Greg Colling, who we've been using for many years, and once we get a go on this, Greg is going to help us through the variance process. But this is his analysis of the space and the determination that this will work. couple more photographs of how this inclined lift will work both indoors and outdoors, and we're looking at a similar solution for access through the front doors, but step at a time, if we can make this project work successfully, and we can navigate through it, we'll have more confidence. So it's a nice compact unit. And here's a list of pricing. The quote came in at 38,000, but that was last summer. I asked about the increase, guess what? It's gonna be minimum 5%, so let's just say 41. Architectural work, some structural work, we have to run dedicated electric line to it, there needs to be a dedicated phone line. For code reasons, we need to put in a pad, we need to move those, remove the aluminum doors that I had mentioned before, reconfigure the alarm. For fire department, we need to have a exit sign, do some leveling of the bricks and make the bathroom successful. And here is support thus far for the initiative, for the programming initiatives and for the interactives and the infrastructure that we're currently doing in the space, which is building out and putting in walls and new floors. And you can see it's pretty much a who's who and of funders in the Newburyport area, which is great. Would have doubled amount for Newburyport Bank in there for some reason, but there you go, it's good. We should have done 3 times, maybe. So, next slide is, this is the hard quote from Garavanta, so you can see how we got to the 38.4, but again, it's an old quote. And this is for the platform size here, this is the operative part to look at here, this 29 by, it leaves enough space on the other side for proper egress, which is a good thing. There's a letter from the Hoyt Foundation, and thanks to Bob's connection and Susan.
I'm gonna jump in.
Sure.
So just for a quick review, many years ago, and maybe 70 pounds ago, I did a lot of running, and I developed a relationship with Rick and Dickie Hoyt, actually here in Newburyport when they ran a couple races. I became friends with Susan Grillo, who's out in the island. She's the aunt of Ricky. Sadly, they both passed. I do some work with the Hoyt Foundation for one of their races, but their motto is yes, we can. And when I got on board at the Custom House, it was no, we can't. We can't, we have no space on either side of the building. We have no money to put in an elevator, even if we had to get through incredible hurdles. Can't put it out back, it's a flood zone. Can't put it out back, we have a deed restriction. So with all that being said, we were in a position of we don't have to do anything, because we aren't required to have, accessibility at that level. We decided we wanted it for the kids. And quite frankly, our clientele is somewhat older, and it'll be helpful to me as well. Uni and all that, but so we were looking at this, and I don't want to jump too far ahead. We're just talking about the Discovery Center in the basement. But through our research, the Cheers Pub in Boston, at Bull and Finch, they actually have a permitted lift at that historic building. And it's an incredible job of how it's there, but it's hidden, but it's there. So it can, yes, we can do it, with permissions and help and whatnot. And so the Hoyt Foundation has actually committed to several years of grants and donations. And we're looking forward to a partnership with them and, I don't want to take up too much time, but, it's really important to get people that want to get into the building, into the building. We do have, an issue of connecting all the floors, but we're doing the best we can.
Just run through volunteers rock here, look at the numbers there. 7,528 to be specific, because we have everybody write down their hours. And that's a huge amount of volunteers, and attendance is up. Jeff Briggs helping out, these are all great interactives, kids are just loving them. The Plum Island Lighthouse is next, it's about 7 feet, 6 feet high legally, and it's got a rotating light, and then hanging off this are cool exhibits like how do you make electricity, how do you generate electricity, talk about light waves, diffraction grating, so it's. I think we're solving for, you gotta go to Portsmouth to the marine science, which is terrific. You gotta go south a bit, obviously Audubon does a great job on the marine side, so we'll focus on the maritime. But I think there's an area there in STEM, kind of K2, maybe up to, K12. And that we can explore. So I think it'll be a paradigm shift, this is successful, all this is gonna come online by early spring at the latest, and obviously the lift, if this all goes well, we'll install that probably by the end of the year, so. So this was a trial last summer, where we had a couple of outdoor events, and with hardly any advertising, we pretty good attendance at this throughout the day, so the idea is it spills in and it spills out, and by dropping barriers to admission, well, now you don't have to worry about having a gate for people to come in. We can encourage donations, obviously, but we think this is gonna be quite popular, and we'll roll this out once a week, July through probably early September. So the combination of outdoor space plus indoor space plus a focus now on kids and families, we think is going to really be a paradigm shift in terms of the constituencies that we're catering to, and repegging the museum, the eyes of the community, and hopefully, serving a need. That's the story that we're sticking with.
And sticking with it, okay. Questions or comments from you?
Well, I have to compliment you. I just think it's extraordinary what's happened there under the new management yourself. And I've been following it, no Briggs, and been following all that, and what's happening there. I was with you not long ago, but it's what a gift. We got 2 museums, both well managed. It's just extraordinary what's going on in this town right now. Anyhow, my compliments. And I think, like you say, you've got an architect involved with it who's cautious and informed and cares a lot about history. So it seems to have all good things coming together.
If I just may add one quick thing to your comment. It's really easy for me to be First Lord of the Admiralty when I have Admiral Nelson over here. Okay. And this is the individual that has absolutely turned that museum around. And,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to dying on the job.
so,
Not so much.
so you're gonna be here that long.
I would say to your point about the partnerships seem to be very strong and easy to make, really. I think there's a high degree of enthusiasm in terms of partnering. I mean, it goes without saying, like we're talking on a daily basis, but with other nonprofits in town, it's there is a one-on-one equals 3 that comes from that, and I think people who support organizations see that, appreciate that. we're working together when it makes sense, like your whole Revolutionary War program is a great example of it.
That's new. A lot of that's new for those of us that have lived in the town. The relationship between the museums has not always been a happy one. Just an observation. Anyhow, it's a wonderful thing going on.
I noticed from a prior presentation this evening, reference to the Mass Cultural Council's Facilities Fund. And that aspect of I knew the Cultural Council, that aspect of the fund was new to me. Is that something that possibly could plug into your, plans here?
Yeah, so that's a case of, and you gotta play your cards right on this one, right? Because we applied, we got the 73 from that. By the way, the Cultural Facility Fund is like one of the best things that Mass Cultural Council does. It's a fantastic fund. And it runs up through mass development. And by the way, it wasn't impacted by the executive order a couple of days ago, unlike a couple of other grants that we got. Something like a fun scare on a Tuesday. So the way to think about that is, I think this is manageable and quick. We also have to wait a period of time before we can go back to the Mass Cultural Council.
Right.
So we're running, and now that we've drawn down all our CPC funds for the masonry, we still have work to do. So now we're drawing down on the Mass Cultural Council reimbursable funds. So that's gonna run through, let's say, April, give or take. But then let's give that a year because we have a mandatory wait period. But truthfully, if we can figure out how to get access in through the front door, that's gonna be a more expensive proposition.
Sure.
So I wanna kind of keep that in the back pocket and play the card for that, unless you guys wanna pick up about $120,000, but I suspect you might want a little bit of water carried by others for that. So I thought that would be the best way.
Well, the front door, I envision just a larger buoy, and it's gonna be a circular.
That's right, a hoist.
We're gonna move the breaches buoy, exhibit out there and haul people up with that.
Sure, I can do that too, yeah.
Question, that, well, again, when I was reading through the application, I didn't realize your attendance was going up so much. It was just, it's so encouraging, and I love these programs with the children and the families, and congratulations to that, on that.
Oh, thanks. Well, that's a partnership with, I mean, that was a handshake with Jim Keenan over at Boys and Girls.
It's fantastic.
But now we're talking to April, we're gonna see if we can expand this.
You mentioned a couple variances. Are those strictly building code variances? I remember I read something on the application.
Yeah,
Does it have to do with historic, or is it strictly?
Oh,
building?
it's ADA related.
It's ADA,
Yeah,
okay.
that platform.
Do you have an idea of when? For
Yeah,
our timeline, do you know when you'll get those?
so I think that timeline goes, don't spend a penny until we get the variances, by the way. But Dennis, I think we'll talk to the council facilities here, but my understanding is that is not gonna be an issue because Dennis has been advising on this project for us. And then I think Boston looks and does weight pretty heavily what's coming from our recommendation. And the trick here is, we don't have to do this, and this is costing money, so it's not a requirement, but it's an optional
Right.
extra that we're doing. I mean, we're taking on work.
One
that we
would
don't
think
have
it
to
would
do.
be an okay
Right.
on that
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
but I'm just thinking, how long it's going to take in terms of our funding and our timeline.
Dennis
and
said to me, that when this whole process plays out, that he thought it would take longer to get the elevator, the lift permit, than it would be to get the variances in Boston.
Okay,
Cause he thought that, we don't have to do this. And yet we are. And this is something that, they're going, this is a real good thing.
well, I encourage you, if anything comes in, if any updates, just keep.
Oh. I could probably say a bookend on that is late winter, this should be installed. Because it'll go, I mean, we wouldn't make any deposits with Garavanta until we know that we've got the funding. We're not going to look for variances until we know we've got the funding. That goes through multiple steps. We're not going to make an order with Garavanta until we know the variances are gonna clear, and then there's a queue for Garavanta to build a lift of, let's say, 2 or 3 months. So that does push this thing out until, you know, certainly Q4 at the
Right.
earliest, and then you gotta line up folks, and so I would say late Q4, early Q5, which is just fine.
Okay. I guess my point was, when we're deliberating in March, if you have any updates on your timeline, because we're being asked for more money than we have. And so we need to prioritize as well.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah.
That's
And
the
also
first year
funds.
that's happened.
Was that?
That's the first year that's happened.
No.
Yeah.
We live in a great town with lots of projects.
Anybody tuned in? No? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Next, you have the Cushing House campus fence preservation. Bethany, you have the floor.
I think I'm Arthur Duper Wellington, if you're, you both die.
Yeah, but that timeline.
All right, hello, everyone. I'm Bethany Groffero. I'm the executive director of the Museum of Old Newbury. And I am here to ask for support for our historic fence project, which will require me to put on my reading glasses. We are undertaking the preservation and stabilization of the historic fences and the historic garden house at the 1808 Cushing House. Can you give me the next slide? I thought I would just show you a picture with some greenery in it, because every time I come to a meeting about this, it is below 0. So I've been pulling pictures with flowers in them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Significant portions of the wooden fence, made up of solid board, twine and groove, with lattice and picket and other iterations have failed entirely, as you can see. Although there are pretty ferns, there's also a totally collapsed fence. They must be replaced in kind completely. Portions of this fence are currently being held up by systems of support braces. You can see the next slide. This is a more recent photo that will not withstand a severe weather event. Next, please. The section of lattice fencing that traditionally separated the cobble driveway, which was recently restored and it's lovely. It collapsed in 2021 and was deemed unsalvageable. It was rotted completely through. Fortunately for us, detailed drawings of this historic fence section, erected in 1865, were made by the WPA as part of the HABS program in 1936 during the Great Depression. In fact, the Museum of Old Newbury has extensive drawings of all the historic fences at the 98 High Street property. During the Depression, the so-called John N. Cushing place was studied in detail. So we sort of have the mother lode of resources here. We not only have the HABS drawings, but we have Margaret Cushing herself, who was born in the house in 1855, and therefore was able to tell people what she remembered all the way back to the 1860s. So we have oral history, we also have drawings. So next slide, please. So this is the lady herself conveniently standing in front of one of the historic fences. This is the fence that separated what was the driveway to the carriage barn, which was turned in a different direction. And this fence still exists along that, divides the sort of working landscape from the formal garden. And this is one of the drawings from the HABS program. Next, please. This is another one. Literally every possible aspect of these fences was documented. It's genius. I can't imagine how much this would have cost to have somebody do. We're very lucky to have that. I have some, if you want to see it in a little bit more detail, I have some copies of the plans if you like. It's also obviously available online along with all the other HABS drawings. That's front and back as well. Okay, next please. This is the archway that leads out into the garden. And again, they're all materials are specified, profiles of molding, everything. And the history of the fence itself is also determined there. Next, please. Okay, and this is just some more profiles of fences. And next, please. Okay, so moving swiftly on, the iconic iron fence. Was built in 1890. It's seen here on the left in 1894, which was pretty much new. and it is remarkably stable for a fence of its age. It too is in need of preservation to ensure another 135 years of useful life. Rust and paint loss are evident throughout. Important joints and iron braces are broken and the gates no longer closed. They're kept in place with bricks, so there's a security issue there as well. So we probably are all familiar with that fence. It's a beauty. Next, please. These properties have changed over time. On the right-hand side, this is a picture of Margaret Cushing, aforementioned Margaret Cushing on Fruit Street with her, probably her father. She's on the left of the gentleman on the right. And as you can see at that time, the fence that is now the wrought iron fence was a wooden picket fence. So we know that's probably about 1864, 1865. And they made some mistakes then as well. In this case, when they changed from a wooden fence to an iron fence, they did not connect the two and they put in sort of an awkward half post, which has been rebuilt and awkwardly arranged over time. So we're gonna rebuild that as well, just so it doesn't just collect water and make mold, which is what it does right now. And also, we have some modern fixtures on there because it's not very stable. And we needed that, we need to just rethink that whole plan. So that's part of this plan as well. And again, we can see the beautiful Fruit Street in the snow. Next one is just a close-up of that original board fence. There's also this really cool little enclosure over the Fruit Street door, which as the resident of that office, I would appreciate returning, but I'm not asking for that at this time. And actually, it's not accurate for the time period that's preserved, but I love that shot. Okay, next, please. The iconic 1934 garden house, which backs up to the High Street board fence, was designed by the architectural firm of Perry, Shaw and Hepburn, and was also studied during the Depression. It backs up, it has several sections that are rotted. Next, please. And it's fairly stable overall, but it just needs some a little bit of structural repair. And Perry, Shaw and Hepburn were a big deal. Perry was a Newburyport native, but they were working on Colonial Williamsburg at the time. So actually came up from Colonial Williamsburg to do Margaret Cushing's garden house. It was considered an important enough project. Yeah. Okay, next, please. What have to say about this? Oh, yes, the fences at the Cushing House are not only decorative but practical. On the left-hand side, you see a gate that is leaned up against the fence on Fruit Street. This gate once slid over the cobblestone driveway to enhance security and shield equipment and the rear of the privy shed from view. It is an incredibly inconvenient gate that I wish I didn't have to put back, but if you're gonna take one, you take them all. So we're gonna rebuild that and make it functional. It is not currently functional. And then on the right-hand side, you can see Margaret Cushing is, I believe, standing in the middle, and she again is standing. There's a part of the garden fence behind her. She's standing in a formal garden on the other side of the fence that you saw her on before. Unfortunately, she didn't pose in front of every section of fence on the property. Next, please. So this is the budget that was included in the packet. And it does, the estimate does come from Crosby Home Improvement, but it was developed by, me, it was developed by us. And basically we were looking for a fence contractor to do a historic fence that divides the rear of our next door neighbor from our back garden. And during that process, we interviewed and got estimates from a variety of companies. Most of them were too busy to provide one, so we got it from 2 companies. And in the end, there were so many different kinds of repairs. There was the metal repair, then there were sections of the fence that needed to be worked on by a preservation carpenter. Steve Crosby is a preservation carpenter. He's currently working on a project at Strawberry Bank. I met him at Historic New England. He's in a Newburyport local. And so he is going to do the spot preservation carpentry. He's also going to oversee the fencing company, but we've been involved in every part of that process. So this looks like a simple estimate, but it's not. It's pieces of other estimates from other conversations, but it's going to incorporate every element of the fencing on the property, except for that one piece of rear fencing, which is going to be done by us and split with the neighbor cost raise. So the community and the museum have recently invested significant time and treasure in the preservation of this historic landscape. Thank you for your help in that way. We also are hoping that we see increased visitation to the Perkins Art and Research Center, which is just about to have the electric done. And then we will have a grand opening and it will blow your mind. It's amazing, but the path to that has to go through this landscape. And, you know, gates have to function. It has to be a workable solution. And we're lucky to have such an incredible landscape, which is a public resource to this community. It is open to the public. And we, especially during COVID and after COVID, saw a huge increase in people who had discovered it during COVID and continue to come, not on days like today, but in the summer and picnic. And, you know, listen to music or just hang around. So there was a theater group, who were rehearsing one summer evening. And I didn't know they were there and wasn't really sure what was going on for a while. And did one of the get off my lawn until I figured out who they were. So anyway, it's being used by a variety of community interests, let's just say. So thank you. These are just cheesecake shots of sunshine and green things. That's the summer house. And this is the last, even with the
It's
fence.
nice right now.
Yeah. Doesn't it look nice? You can see the kind of mood I was in when I did this slideshow. And in fact, that fence has collapsed. It's being held up by braces. So actually that's a tragedy photo, but it's a beautiful light. And the garden there is not only, at the rear garden near Perkins is sort of a teaching garden. We've got some wonderful volunteers that teach younger volunteers about plants, about herbs. So everything's labeled and they also grow them for our plant sale, which happens as part of our garden tour. So there is sort of a education garden section and then there's the formal garden, which is closer to where that summer house is. There's also something called the garden seat, which is another sort of garden structure that we have just restored at our own cost. So that's also not part of this program, even though it's part of the fencing, sort of. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you for listening.
If you want to report on the NHC?
Yeah, we got the almost same presentation and, but with I think, didn't you have more historical photos? I feel like you did. Maybe you were trying to sway us.
No, it's the same one.
Okay.
That was the same, that was the same photos.
No, but we all found that what this space does, and there used to be so many garden spaces along High Street. Some people still have them, but you're not going back there to get and see them. And this is one of the only places you can do that. And along with the historic property, it seemed very worthy of support.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
I just had one comment, and I don't have it in front of me, so I could be wrong, but I wrote down letter of support from NHC, so I don't know if there was a letter of support.
Yeah.
We just got it this afternoon.
Yeah.
We'll upload it to the.
Okay.
We just had our meeting last week, so
Okay.
it's been on.
I figured you
We
did,
had tight
but it
turnaround.
wasn't in the application, and so I was assuming there was one there.
Who holds the preservation restriction?
It is currently held by, we have a draft restriction in Glenn and we are working with Glenn to finalize it. There's not a historic structures report and there have never been measured drawings of the house. So we just did that. So we're trying to be as careful as possible during this process. It's currently held by MHC.
MHD?
And yes, Mass Historical. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
Mass Historical Commission, yeah.
And they would continue to hold it?
Yeah, they will hold it until it is completely transferred to.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody tuned in? Has a question?
No.
No?
Good.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
For your work.
Last but certainly not least, you have the Open Space Reserve Fund application in the amount of $70,000. And if you look at it, it will look strikingly familiar to last year's with the dates changed. Because it's the same request. And last year it hit the editing room floor on the last night. So we still have the $929,000 in the reserve. And, just, once again, asking consideration to continue to, invest in that fund as a savings account for when, the big opportunity comes along. It hasn't this year, and I don't know what's gonna happen next year. But when it does, it'll need to be addressed quickly. The more funds we have, access to, the more likely we are to get, moneyed partners in whatever transaction is presented to us.
Could I just chime in there?
Sure.
Just wanted to put in a plug for that one myself as a land use planner, or chief land use planner for the city. I think it's very important to have as much funds as possible in an account like that to be able to mobilize funds when needed. It's a little bit like the housing trust having funds to be able to mobilize when needed. They're obviously a better vehicle for us than say going through CPC and council because our process takes longer. But I think even just having the funds set aside when needed, obviously land prices these days are pretty expensive. So, what we do have a fair amount of space that's preserved is open space in the city, and I think we're lucky for that. We honestly want to be able poised to do that as needed in the future. There are other pieces that, may come about, we've talked about periodically, and we want to be prepared. So definitely support this, or any allocation to that account. Thank you.
And one minor difference between, the reserve fund, and the appropriations that have been made to the Affordable Housing Trust is that they have discretionary control over those as long as those funds that they give out is for a CPC purpose. So that's a condition that they have. The open space reserve fund is like a savings account that only gets drawn on with a new application. So the city gets an opportunity to pick up, another, 50 acres over at the city forest or whatever. And the city then comes in and says, we want to use the reserve fund for this project and here's what it looks like. Then we make the recommendation for that specific project. So we get to look at it again. So, okay. Questions?
Any particular reason why you didn't make it $70,034?
Yeah, right.
You mean just to break the break?
Don't make it $1 million.
Well, I didn't want to be greedy. Okay. It does it for the presentations. I just want to note to folks that you do have it's been circulated, a letter from the mayor, which gives his take on the city projects, similar to last year's letter. You've also had a few updates on the quarterly reports. So I, would recommend you take a look at both of those. And then if you've got any further questions or comments about any of that, we can entertain them at the next meeting. Finally, we have the draft minutes for approval from the meeting of January 16th. Are there any questions or comments about them?
There's a portion of it's highlighted in yellow.
My computer was just.
Okay.
I noticed it today, I have to go look at it, I was like, oh, so it's already fixed.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay, and second, okay, all in favor? Can we do it with a raised hand? I think we can. Okay, does anybody have any other new business? Old business questions? No, then move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous vote. We're going home.
It wasn't 12 minutes this time. Wasn't a 12-minute meeting.
No, no.
What was it?
I broke Jane's record. No, it was.
Now I